Good Sabbath to you. I'm hoping you can see me. I'm hoping you can hear my voice. I'm hoping you are ready to step off into a new adventure. I actually call the book that we're going to start studying and studying over the next 11 weeks. Hello, can you hear me? We're having a little technical difficulty, as I am wont to do. I think it's more technological from the standpoint of the operator than it is of equipment. But here we are. So we are going to be studying the book that I call The Great Adventure. As if Bereshit, as if Genesis wasn't adventure enough, we're going to step up the action. It's like my kids used to play video games, and I would want to start at the introductory level. I really wasn't good at the video games. I never really got used to them, so I was happy just to survive the introductory level. But they would keep going level by level, higher and higher. Well, hello, we are ready to go to another level in our video game, but of life, the real life actions of a covenant people. A covenant people takes every step of the journey, every level of the interaction and the adventure, and then builds upon that in the next season. Well, here we are in the next season. This is the week of Parsha Shemot. It will begin our study of the book of the same name, Shemot. Most Westerners have learned to call this the book of Exodus. That's sort of a misnomer, because the main point of this book is not about the Exodus. That's just the introduction. The first 12 or 13 chapters are about the Exodus, but the end, this is a 40-chapter book, and as you can tell, way over half of the book is about something set loose from the challenges of bondage. What do we do then? What do we do with our freedom? Well, that's what this book is all about, and it's going to take us to the next level. I call this book, at least Parsha Shemot section of it, the beginning section of it, the Parsha of mortar, brick, and all kinds of subservience, because we're going to learn that is where we came from. We should never forget where we came from. In fact, one of the things that the rabbis teach us about Passover is that each of us, every one of the members of the covenant, as they come through life, as they go through the generations, each one of us is responsible to view the Exodus as if we personally came out of bondage. We experienced it. We knew what it felt like. We smelled it. We tasted it. We dealt with it. We suffered from it. We lost sleep over it. We lost friends over it, and then we overcame. That is to be our life story, our testimony. And we're supposed to tell it to our children so they can relive it again and again and again. It's not about the pain. It's about learning where we came from. It's about learning what molded us into who we are, and about why we do what we do and why we don't do what the rest of the world does, why we don't get sucked up into the atmosphere and the approach and the ways of the world around us. So here we are, and we are however, Sefer Bereshit, book of Genesis as it's called in the Western world. Wow, what a trip, what a challenge that was. When you realize it's not just something you pick and choose, you go in and try to find a verse that you like for the day. This is a story, beginning with Genesis 1:1 and Bereshit bara. When you begin with that phrase and you carry all the way through the end, when Joseph's bones are in the tomb in Egypt, it's one continuous story. You just don't get to pick and choose. It's all part of your story, and one thing builds upon another. So wow, what a trip, what an adventure we had through the book of Bereshit. And I hope you have built a relationship with the creator of the universe. That's what the whole purpose of that book is, to allow us as individuals to begin to identify with those who have a relationship. To some degree, we identify with Adam and Hava. To some degree, we are to identify with Noah and with Hanok, To some degree, we're to identify with Abraham, obviously, and with Yitzhak and Yaakov, and down to his brothers Yehuda, and of course with Joseph. We are to identify with them because they are our heritage. And even if we have not been born into the physical lineage, if some of you have not been born into the physical lineage that of the bloodline of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, by virtue of reading and studying these stories, the power of the words of the Holy One convert our DNA, convert us spiritually into something. We don't take the place of B'nai Israel. You cannot ever take the place of the actual physical B'nai Israel. There's no replacement going on. What there is an engrafting, an association, a connection. And we begin to flow in unity and unison in purpose and meaning and in action and in word and in interaction with the world and an impact on the world. That's the key of Genesis. Have you learned? Have you gotten your relationship on track? Is it now a covenant-based relationship as opposed to a me, I want this, will you do this for me, don't hurt me, kind of a haphazard, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work relationship with the Holy One? Or do you understand you have a covenant with the Creator of the universe? And that's your most valuable asset. He has a plan, and He has enlisted human beings like you and like me in that grand plan. He spelled out the plan in broad brush, in macro, to Abraham. I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you, and you will become a blessing. He said, and I will make your name expand, enlarge, great, gadol. And those who bless you, I will bless. You will be like a canary in a coal mine. You will be like a candle in a cave. Those who nurture you and draw off of you and let you be who you are and do what you do, those people will be blessed. Now, that's why I say this is about more than the lineage of Abraham. But not more than that. He said that you will be this other thing too. If other people choose to reject you, to hate you, to oppress you, to persecute you, to curse you, to make you insignificant, seem insignificant in your world, or belittle you, or mock you, if that's what they choose to do, that is their choice. But there are consequences. There are sowing and reaping consequences. And so we've learned this about our calling and about our purpose and about our mission and about our covenant relationship. How people respond to us. We need to be responsible to behave good, to behave in such a way that they should be drawn to us, and to talk in such a way that they should be interested and desire to learn and illumined by us. But we should understand that how they react is their business, and there will be consequences and results. He says, not only that, it says ultimately the plan, the covenant is to make us a blessing, those who are associated with Abraham, to make us a blessing to every family on the face of the earth. Mind blown, amazing concept, amazing plan. This is why our King only could come up with a plan like this. Our Creator, designer, sustainer, the one who controls and manages the ecosystem, the one who cares about it more than any human being or any organization or institution or government ever could, the one who really knows what it needs, says, I will bring about a great redemption and a great restoration using human beings that associate with this covenant. Well, here we are in covenant with the Creator of the universe. What a privilege, what an honor it is, and yet what an awesome responsibility. Well, we've learned what it means to kind of relate to Him the way Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov did, to have occasional God encounters when He speaks to us and tells us what we need to do, or what we need to how we need to think about life, how we need to approach life. Well, He's given us those things. That's individual relationship with Him. I say these things, and I don't want to pass by them too soon. I don't want to assume that you are satisfied or should be satisfied with the level of individual relationship and interaction and communication you have with the Holy One. I want you to draw yourself unto and hunger for the deeper levels of that relationship and the deeper meanings and purposes of that covenant, I want your appetite to be whetted. But I must move on because we're into stage 2 now. Stage 2 of this great process takes us beyond the individual relationship. The Holy One's going to do something in this next 11 weeks of the Torah, the next section of Torah that we're doing. This is the book of Shemot, and the focus changes from individual relationship with the Holy One and us getting comfortable with the idea that He is our covenant partner. He is guiding and directing and shepherding our life, and we are accountable to Him in that regard. That's the covenant relationship. But what else is there? What more is there? Well, that is the point of Sefer Shemot. This is the book of great nation building. You remember the first thing He said to Abraham after go out from your people? He said, I will make of you a great nation. I will make of you a great nation. He later expanded that when He was talking to Yitzhak and Yaakov. I'll make of your seed a great nation. Well, what makes a nation? Why? How? We thought we were just about us, about our relationship with the Holy One and being responsible to Him and being blessed by Him and having this wonderful chance of communion and conversation and intimacy, and we like to call it worship or whatever. We have all these things that are all individual to us, or maybe our family, maybe our children, our wife, our spouse, and maybe a few friends that we can gather with and talk about the same things. But a nation, an entity that is collective and that is broad and that involves people that we don't even know, that is grand worldwide and universal, crosses generations, and it changes environment, changes atmosphere, shifts the environment and the atmosphere wherever it goes, that is the canary in the coal mine, that is the candle lit in the cave, the nation, that we have to deal with other people that are not exactly like us, that don't think completely like us, that we need to learn how to correlate and synergize with and let iron sharpen iron with others, that for a common purpose, a greater purpose than any individual dream or desire. That's the point of Sefer Shemot. And of course it begins with Parsha by the same name, Shemot. Sefer Bereshit should have awakened in us a reverence for our Creator. Fear of the Lord is said in the King James Version, I think. A fear of the Lord, a reverence, a sense of awe, a sense of wonder, a sense of something about Him is more important and more substantive than even life itself. Life is such a blessing. So life is, as I'm coming close to the end of life, it felt like a few weeks ago through this pathogen that spreads through the earth and its effect on the human body. I sort of have a new appreciation for the beauty and the wonder of life, just having another day, another few hours, another chance to breathe, another chance for my heart to beat, another chance to have a conversation or at least an interaction with my grandchildren, my wife, my friends, the world. That is a new thing, and have a reverence for the Holy One Himself. I hope that as we begin this new adventure of great nation building, as He takes us through this journey of great nation building, that we never lose sight that this is really all about a great and amazing, astonishing, beautiful, wonderful, majestic King, the one who created the heavens and the earth, the one who is designing and choreographing the world to bring about a great result. Well, I hope that's what you're going to do. The other thing that the book of Bereshit, Sefer Bereshit, did was to introduce us to basic boot camp kind of protocols about communion with and interaction with the Holy One. We kind of learned how to talk to Him through Abraham's story and Noah's story and through Adam's story and through the other patriarchs. We learned how to just have a conversation, that life is about an ongoing conversation. with the Holy One, that we're not alone. There is this witness factor, that he is with us, he's watching over us, he is guiding and directing us, he is choreographing our lives, and therefore we have this ongoing relationship. That should be a thing we should never forget as we're doing this great nation building. You see, movements don't start a great nation. Politics don't start a great nation. Political leaders don't start a great nation. Moshe is not the nation builder. The nation builder is the Holy One himself. Whenever we get to the Psalms and we start talking about the Holy One is building Jerusalem, that's what he's doing. He's building Jerusalem. We become like his Jerusalem. We don't replace Jerusalem. There will be a physical city. There will be a mass of people in the place of the pilgrimages and the place of where the Torah comes forth. But in a sense, we become little Jerusalems in a metaphysical, spiritual sense. He's building us into that, where we can host his presence. So we've learned basic, essential boot camp stuff of how to talk. Have a little talk with the Creator of the universe. I hope you're expanding on that. Your time now, as we ended Genesis and began Book of Exodus, you're going to need to know how to talk to the Holy One, and you're going to need to know how to listen to him. And need to learn how to let what he says soak into you. It doesn't happen all at once. You don't just get changed. It begins to work on you. It's like 7 days of creation. The words of the Holy One take a while to process, especially in his created world and his human beings. So we've learned how to have fear and reverence for the Holy One. We've learned how majestic and wonderful and awesome he is. We have learned how to talk to him, and that he wants to talk to us, and he wants us to talk back to him, and he wants us to have a growing relationship with him. We have also been connected in the book of Bereshit, of Genesis, to Abrahamic covenants, essential foundations. Our father, Abraham Avinu, Yitzhak, with the various different characteristics, attributes, and the ways of dealing with life that we saw modeled for us by Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and then Yosef, and eventually Yehuda at the end. We find that these are the covenant essentials. We should never forget these things. We should never think we're on our own. We have a heritage. We have a blood-bought, blood-influenced lifestyle, worldview that we can bring to bear on any given situation. So these Abrahamic essential covenant foundations. We have learned through the book of Genesis, hopefully. If not, I feel I've somewhat failed, and we'll do it again next year, do it again better, hopefully next year. I hope that in those who are at least engaging in these teachings, whether it be mine or others of the Torah from this perspective, are catching the B'Tselem Elohim mission statement. B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. In the shadow would be a more shade or shadow of God. The idea that man is designed and at his highest potential can be a mirror or a shadow on earth of what is happening in heaven. The Holy Yeshua, I believe, taught this very clearly. It is how he taught us to pray. He said, may your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And that can only come through the activity of co-laboring of man with the Holy One here in this life, on this world. That we learn that our job, our purpose on life, our highest and best use is not to enjoy ourselves and have pleasure and maybe do a few good deeds. Those will come as necessary and as appropriate. But the key factor is to do whatever the Father's doing and to mirror it upon the earth and to model it for other human beings and to introduce it to creation to make it a fruitful ecosystem. Well, that B'Tselem Elohim mission statement, that was the first thing the Holy One spoke over man on the sixth day of creation. He would be in the image, the shadow, the shade of the Holy One. And then whenever he began to speak to Abraham, at one point he said, Hidhalech lefanai, walk before me, walk before my face. Understand that you're always walking in my presence, and I'm always looking at you. I'm always keeping an eye on you. Psalm 1, says, but the eye of the Holy One is upon the righteous. We live before his gaze. He's watching like a father. He wants us to do well. He encourages. He knows what will take to discipline us, to cause us to do that which is honoring and glorifying to ourselves and to himself. When I say to ourselves, I mean to get yourself some sort of great reputation. I mean, so that you don't embarrass yourself. And most of life is people embarrassing themselves. Being over sentimental, over emotional, being angry, being outraged. They make fools of themselves, being hyper political and theoretical and pseudo intellectual. They do folly and vanity. That's daily life. Most people do this. They get upset about things, and they get caught up in drama. Well, the Holy One says, Hitalek lefanai, walk before my face. Everything is if I'm your dad, or your father, your mentor, your rabbi. How will you behave to honor yourself and to honor the one who has put you forth to be his representative? These things were modeled to us to some degree, and the converse was also modeled to us in this process. We saw what happened at Shechem both times. The second time more like at Dothan with Joseph, but the first time overreacting, seeing a bad situation, which we'll see many of, seeing people do bad things, all right, one person in particular do bad things, and then extrapolating that to all other people in the area and overkill. That we did. Those are the kinds of examples that we followed or saw modeled for us. How to and how not to represent the Creator of the universe. That was the book of Genesis. Well, now we have come to the end of what is commonly called the patriarchal period. We were not going to see much about patriarchs in the book of Exodus or in the subsequent books of Torah. We're going to move on to the great nation. And so this end of the patriarchal period, we have so much to learn yet, though we know how to have a relationship with the Creator of the universe, though we now know we are in covenant with him and we have covenant obligations and responsibilities, and we will be held covenantally accountable to him, though we will also receive covenantal blessings to accomplish his purposes and mission on earth, though we are always walking before his gaze, there is so much more that he has to teach us. This rabbi has only got us through round one of this grand journey, this grand apprenticeship he wants for us. So we have so much more to learn about life. I hope that makes you happy. I hope it doesn't make you sad. If you thought this is something you conquer the world of knowledge by reading a book. Well, the Holy One says, no, we're on a journey of discovery that you will be on the rest of your life. And around the next bend, behind the next door, in the next Sefer, book of Torah, in the next Parsha, in the next section of the Aliyah of Torah, there is going to be something new for you to learn every single day, every single week, every single year for the rest of your life and then beyond. We have so much more to learn about life. That's a good thing. Get excited, get joyful. I know that this day is a day when many people who have are trying to say, well, do we even belong in this world? The people are all excited and hyper sentimental and going into traditions we don't even like or understand. That's their business because they've chosen that for right now. Hopefully not next year. Maybe there'll be a change. But it's not our business to do that. But it is. We are called to learn more about life by virtue of seeing what other people will do. Not to condemn them, not to hate them, not to call them names and spew self-righteous indignation at them, but to say, okay, so that's one of the things that life throws at you. That's one way you can get deceived, one way you can get distracted, one way you can lose your focus on why you're really here in the B'Tselem Elohim, shade of the Holy One mission and the covenantal calling. Well, we can lose that easily. Well, this is things we learn. We have so much to learn about the rules of engagement. The kingdom of heaven wants to come to earth. It doesn't want to invade and conquer. I think that's a lot of the warfare mindset, that we're just going to destroy, annihilate the adversary down here. That's really not the king's plan. The king's plan really is to infiltrate and to begin to change mindsets and worldviews and redeem those that are in darkness, as opposed to condemn them, accuse them, hate them, kill them in this process. And so to learn that there are covenant protocols. There are protocols of kingdom interaction. There, we would like to maybe find any enemy and just attack them. That might be what our flesh or our pseudo-intellect would tell us to do, or what religious tradition might tell us to do. But the Holy One says, no, that's not the way you do this. Stay calm, stay focused, and follow the rules of engagement. You love, you share shalom, you offer a better and more excellent way. You continue to keep your hope. You keep your confidence in the Holy One. You don't get traumatized or offended and hold that onto that offense. You get rid of those things. You don't let anger and outrage and a sense of moral rectitude somehow affect what you do. No, you stay calm. You stay focused, and you stay on kingdom protocols. And you keep doing what the kingdom tells you to do, what the king tells you to do, because that's what he says will work. Not governments, not military action, not hating, angry, shouting warfare, not even debate. What works is the kindness and the love and the mercy and the wisdom of the Holy One. So we are going to learn now not just to relate to our own individual self and the Holy One, not just have this relationship, not just to deal with our own 4 in our family, or 10 or 12, as the case may be. But we're going to learn how to engage with the entire world, all nations, all peoples, and even amongst ourselves, those who are within our circle, the covenant circle, that we find areas that we greatly disagree on. We may not use the same name for the Creator. We may not use the same vocabulary. We may not use the same language. We may get all caught up in minuscule details, swallowing camels. But we are still in this together. We are still in this together. We are still a part of the grand scheme, the grand plan. And what we have in common is the Holy One is in charge of our lives and is directing our paths and speaking to us. And we got to trust the Holy One that he'll bring us and them, those who we slightly disagree with or largely disagree with, into some level of unity, that we can co-labor, that we can synergize with one another, that we can be iron sharpening iron. That's a challenge that we didn't face that much in the book of Genesis. Well, we have so much more to learn about life in the covenant and those rules. Parsha Vayeki was the last Parsha of Genesis. Book ended with Joseph passing away at the age of 110 years, saying, "Don't bury me in Egypt." And we had his bones put in a sarcophagus or a coffin or a box. And they stood there and lay there unburied in the land of Egypt, the land of tombs, scandal as it was. And they testified to us, the Holy One will bless you and he will visit you. He is coming. The Holy One will visit you. And when he does, he will bring you up from this land. This is the storyline of the book of Exodus, the first part. And take you to the land of the patriarchs. That's the second beginning part of the second version. And there was so much more that goes with that. That's where he left us. The Holy Eternal One will surely visit you, he said. And when he does, I want you to carry up my bones from hence. We're going to be part of this great thing with our ancestors, with our generations. We're fulfilling the plan of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and Joseph in this deal. We're not just doing it for our own self or our own family. Final words of Sefer Bereshit were, and Joseph died at the age of 110 years, and they embalmed him, and they placed him in an aron, an ark, in Egypt. Well, with that, we are on notice. As we begin the next book of Torah this week, we are on notice that the story of Abraham's seed is no way about over. We got so much more. We got much more we're laying in front of the seed of Abraham and the mission to which we're called than we have in our rearview mirror. There are dry bones. Dry bones. They're waiting in a box, awaiting transport, awaiting fulfillment in the land in which they are designed to be. That brings us to the paradox of Revelation. Revelation is a very interesting thing. I'm calling Revelation the books of the Torah, the books of the prophets, the books. There are other forms of revelation. I could go into that in great detail. I see 4 revelation streams, but let's just talk right now about the revelation stream of the Torah. Revelation in general, though, is a paradox. The more you know, the more you learn, the more revelation you get, the more you realize you don't have. The more you realize that you are ignorant in the great scheme of things. The more revelation you have, you don't get haughty, you don't get arrogant, you don't get proud, you don't get argumentative. You get humble. You get gently hungry for more. And you see other people through the eyes not of being wrong, but being lost, being broken, being deceived. And you know the thing about it is, everybody says, well, the prophets were not always kind. Well, before you can be unkind or in any way sense to be a little bit rough, you have to feel the pain of the people you're talking to. If you cannot feel their pain, if you cannot feel their burden, then do not ever say a harsh word. Don't ever say a word that would jar them out of their complacency, because you will make them retreat and go the wrong way. And so learning how to carry the prophetic burden of revelation, the burden that we are now responsible to gently release the love and the mercy and the wisdom of the Holy One without causing offense any more than necessary, without trying to stir up divisions between us, without trying to label people and lock people into bondages of thought or action or even title. Forms of religion, forms of theology, forms of ideology. We're not to do that. We are instead to begin to release that which we have received in measured doses with the tone and with the kindness of the Holy One released into the world. And only whenever they have drawn a line in the sand and the prophetic burden is upon us for the sake of other people, then a man like Pharaoh receives a visitation like the Holy One did. Then a nation who is bent on genocide, bent on destruction, bent on anti-Semitism, then unfortunately there will be accountability. That's just the law of sowing and reaping. It's not anger. It's not self-righteousness. It's just the law of sowing and reaping having its effect. Okay. Even as we revel in the aftershocks of Sefer Bereshit, the stunning revelations, we realize that so much has been left undone. So many things have been left unsaid, and there is so much more. Are you ready for the so much more? Oh, don't answer too quickly. Emotionally, spiritually, we may be ready. But whenever it comes down and we let this revelation that's about to hit us, the second wave of revelation, which is called Sefer Shemot, begin to hit us, this is where it gets very real. And we have to learn to self-deny. We have to learn to self-control. We have to learn to hold on to shalom. We have to hold on to wisdom, hold on to patience and long-suffering. Hold on to goodness and gentleness and kindness. Hold on to joy in the midst of dramatic scenarios. Well, ready or not, the second wave of revelation, here it comes. May you receive it. May you withstand the pressures of the world that fight it. And may you walk in this revelation and teach it to your children and your children's children and release it gently and calmly, quietly and kindly and effectively into all your spheres of influence. Okay, Sefer Shemot, Parsha Shemot, beginning with Exodus chapter 1, verse 1. This is the beginning of great nation birth pains. The Holy One told Abraham, I will make you a goy gadol, a great nation, goy gadol. And he said to Yaakov, before Yaakov would agree to go down to Egypt at the end of the book, he said, I am Ha'el Elohei Avika, the God of your fathers. Do not fear. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, because I will make of you a Goy Gadol, a great nation there. The promise is still outstanding, extant to be fulfilled. We left the land of Canaan, where they were the Canaani were occupying the land. We left that land with 70 as being our number. We will not leave Egypt until our number is over 600,000 men, not counting women and children, not counting the great mixed multitude that will come out with us, because that's what happens. That's how the kingdom works. All right. The blessing of the house. I want to read a little bit of the Torah portion, so I want to speak the blessing of the house. If we were in the Biblical Lifestyle Center, and then the circumstances were better, I'd ask everyone to stand. I'm doing this in my office, obviously by myself. So we'll continue to sit. The blessing of the house. Open our eyes, O Holy One. I hope this is your prayer as well. Open our eyes, O Holy One, that we may see wondrous things from your Torah. For we are but strangers in the earth. Do not hide your commandments from us. Our souls cry out for your judgments at all times. How can a young man keep his way pure? By living according to your Torah. For your word is a lamp unto our feet, and it is a light unto our path. The entrance of your word brings light and understanding, even to the simple. So may our spirits come alive, so that they can praise you, and may your judgments be our help. Amen. Let's go to chapter 1 of Exodus. I will be reading this from the New King James actually version. Again, when people talk about versions of the scriptures, what's the best version? I don't know. I haven't found a good English one yet. But as good as any, I guess, is the New King James. It may have its issues, but we will deal with it. Now, these are the names, the Shemot, of Bnei Israel, of the children of Israel, the sons of Israel, who came to Egypt. Each man and his household came with Yaakov. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. All those who were the descendants, the seed of Yaakov, were 70 persons, for Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. Here we have the shift in the atmosphere, the change in the environment. But the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, were fruitful and increased abundantly. And they multiplied, and they grew exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. And there arose a new king in Egypt who knew not Joseph. And he said to his people, Look, behold, the people of the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and it happen in the event of war, that they also join our enemies and fight against us, and so go up out of the land. Therefore, they, being the Egyptians, set taskmasters over them to afflict them with burdens. And they caused them to build for Pharaoh supply cities, Pitom and Ramses. But the more they afflicted them, that being the Egyptians afflicted Bnei Israel, the more they, being Bnei Israel, multiplied and grew. And they being the Egyptians, were in dread of Bnei Israel, the children, the seed of Israel. And so, next step, the Egyptians made the children of Israel serve with rigor. Rigor mortis will set in if you do that long enough. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage. Listen to these descriptions here. And they made their lives bitter with hard bondage in mortar, in brick. Here's the name I gave to this parsha. In mortar, in brick, and in all manner of servitude in the field. All their service in which they made them serve was with rigor. And then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of one of them was Shiphrah, and the name of the other was Puah. And he said, when you do the duties of a midwife for the Hebrew women, and see them on the birth stools, if it is a son, then you are to kill him. But if it is a daughter, then she is to live. But the midwives feared God. We carry over from the book of Genesis. They feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. And so the king of Egypt called for the midwives and said to them, why have you done this thing and saved the children, the male children alive? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. Now hear this. I'm going to read that again. I hope this catches you, especially if you're a female, a girl, a woman, a matriarch. And the midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women. We're not like them. For they are lively, and they give birth before the midwives come to them. Therefore God dealt well at Shalom with the midwives, and the people multiplied, the people of Israel, and grew very mighty. And so it was, because the midwives feared God, that he provided households for them. But then Pharaoh commanded his people, saying, every son who is born, you are to cast into the river. He made every Egyptian subject to a genocidal mandate. Every son who is born, you, the being an Egyptian, shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive. Well, that's the beginning of the story. One man's ceiling is another man's floor. One generation's epilogue is another generation's prologue. We have seen what looks like the end, what looks like a disaster, what looks like a calamity, what looks like a horrible persecution, something like a great tribulation that we read about in later prophetic books. We see these things and we're tempted to say, it's over, there's no way we can survive this. Gently, kingdom, covenant protocols, rules of engagement. Trust the Holy One. Trust the plan. Trust the strategy. A great nation is about to be born. Parsha Shemot, I like the sefer after which it's named, is a parsha of awakening a nation, a group of people that are to form a nation to a collective identity, collective mission, and destiny. The key phrase in all of the book is really not Shemot, which means, usually translated into English as names. It means character traits, protocols, ways of life, attributes. That's what it really means, but it's more than that. It's about Bnei Yisrael, the sons, the children of Israel. You're going to see this phrase in Hebrew repeated over and over again. Every time you see children of Israel or sons of Israel, you're going to understand the Hebrew is Bnei Yisrael, that which is being made after the image of Israel. We're taking Israel and we're multiplexing it. We're taking Israel and we're cloning Israel. We're becoming a great nation of Israel in this process. Well, there are basically four elements of a great nation, particularly of the covenant nation. We're going to see this play its way out. A lot of it's revealed in Exodus 19 at Sinai, at the first visitation of Moshe up the mountain. And then part of it will be the second visitation of Moshe up the mountain. So here are the four basic attributes. If you're going to have a nation, if we're going to be a great nation, we have to have the nation characteristics. And particularly, this is not just any nation. This is the great nation, the Goy Gadol, that the Holy One desires to build and promised Abraham he would build. It has four essential foundations. So first one is, it is an Am Segilah, special treasured people. As it says, you find this in Exodus 19. I'm giving you an advance warning of this is what we're going to be called to become. An Am Segilah, very special, very precious, very closely associated with the creator of the universe. We are not acting independently on the basis of morality. We're not acting independently on the basis of political theory or ideology. We're not basing things on romanticism or on some idea of a utopia that we're supposed to build upon the earth. We're not taking on any of the isms of this world or the ologies of this world. We are an Am Segula. We are a people who is precious and very, very close to and near to and flowing in unity with the Creator of the universe. We're Am Segula. That is part of the first characteristic, the first foundation of the great nation. Are you an Am Segula? Are you a free spirit? Are you a loose cannon? Are you a ideologue? Are you a political theorist? Are you a moralist? Are you an idealist? What are you? Because those things have no place in the Goy Gadol, in the great nation. The great nation, the Goy Gadol, starts with this premise. We belong to the Creator of the universe, and His will must be done, not our will. His glory must be revealed. His honor must be manifested in this earth, and His statements, His directions, His instructions must be followed. We're Am Segula. The second thing the second foundation of the great nation that is being built here, the second great foundation is we are Mamlachet HaKohanim. We are a kingdom of priests, a kingdom of royal ambassadors. We are emissaries, like an ambassador to a foreign nation is sent out by a government. We are like that. His government, His kingdom, sends us out into the world as ambassadors. The thing about ambassadors is, this is also from Exodus 19, 3 through 5, when He tells us what He's doing with us at Sinai. He's building us into a great nation, and that great nation is a representative to the rest of the world. We are sent out as ambassadors into various different spheres of influence. We have various different assignments and deployments that we will be sent on. Every place the sole of our foot shall tread. Every place He assigns us to go, every workplace, every marketplace, every vacation spot, every neighborhood, every place that we go, we are assigned and deployed, not on our own to go have a good time and go make money and do what we do, to begin to be kingdom ambassadors, to represent Him, to be His shadow, to be His shade, to do on earth what He's doing in heaven, and release the same tone, the same fragrance, the same beauty, the same majesty, as much as we possibly can in our human fallen flesh. So we are to be, first foundation of this great nation is we are the Am Segula. The second thing is we are the Mamlachet HaKohanim. And that is what we do everything based upon, not upon what will be pleasing to ourselves, what will make us the most comfort and make us feel good about ourselves, about life. No, it is about doing the will of the Father. The third foundation of the Goy Gadol, the great nation, is that we are a Goy Kadosh. We are a nation that has holiness as its main characteristic and attribute. Holiness, Kedusha in Hebrew. This is the energy of heaven flowing like waves out of the heavenly realm. If you can picture what happens when the living creatures and the elders and the seraphim and the cherubim all say Kadosh, 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 holy, 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 is the Lord God Almighty, is the Holy One God Almighty. The whole earth is filled with His glory. What you should feel is there is a pulsing energy in this word when you say Kadosh or you talk of Kedusha. That's why the Sabbath is so important. It's the holy Sabbath. He made it holy. He made it Kadosh. This is just one of the ways we introduce holiness into the world. We are to be people of holiness. That doesn't mean an external standard necessarily. It means an internal release, an internal combustion that produces heaven upon the earth, produces little signs, little symbols, little evidences of the manifestations of heaven upon the earth. That's why we're most powerful when we exercise the things of heaven. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, long-suffering, gentleness, humility, meekness, self-control, or actually self-denial for the sake of the kingdom. Well, these are the first three, and they're all mentioned in Exodus 19. 3 through 5 is the verses. But in that, He's going to give, those are key factors, key verses for the whole book of Exodus. But there's one more, and that fourth one is sort of the fourth foundation stone of a great nation. If we're going to be the Goy Gadol, then we must find this fourth foundation and put it in place as well. And that is, we are to be the Mishkan. We are to build the Mishkan. A Mishkan, Hebrew comes from the verb shakan, means to dwell, to indwell, to live, abide in. That we are to become a shell for the Holy One to abide in, to live in, to make his dwelling, to make his parlor upon the earth, his place where he interacts and receives visitors and releases, from which he releases kingdom energy and kingdom decrees and kingdom statements and kingdom truth, kingdom wisdom into the earth, kingdom reconciliation, restoration, and redemption. That's what we are to become. We are becoming the Mishkan. And we're to see in Exodus 25, verses 8 and 9. Have them make for me a mikdash, a place of sanctuary, a place of holiness, a place of holiness, and I will dwell in them, with them. That is the fourth and the ultimate aspect of the great nation. Whoa, that's a lot to digest. That's a lot to be excited about. That is a lot to challenge you deep to your core. This is not just about your individual relationship with the Holy One. This is about what he is doing in the earth and what he's doing in his creation, how he is going to bring about and effectuate this grand plan he has for the redemption of mankind as a species, bloodline by bloodline, household by household, family by family, as well as individual by individual, and how he's also going to bring about in the same process the restoration of creation to its original intended state of beauty and fruitfulness, shalom and harmonious interaction. How wonderful his plan is, how wonderful his calling is, how absolutely fantastic the opportunity we have to be with him and do these things with him is. We are to become the Mishkan. We are to become a place where he can abide, where he does abide. We are to be a place from which on which he reigns, the throne upon which he reigns. Know you not that you are the temple of the Holy One. Well, that's what lies in store for us. How do we get there? Well, the first thing we have to learn is that I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of me and Bobby McGee here. I think that verse was, freedom is just another word for nothing left to lose, and nothing ain't worth nothing, but it's free. I want to kind of change that process a little bit, because what I really sense is that freedom ain't worth nothing if it's free. Pardon the digression into some poetic language of the 70s. Freedom ain't worth nothing if it's free. If all we're doing is breaking free of Pharaoh and oppression and bondage and hard labor and bitterness of spirit and hate from the genocidal decrees from other people, if that's all we're doing is breaking free of that, it ain't worth nothing. It's got to cost us something. It's got to change our whole perspective on life for it to become a great nation process. We're going to be forged in a kiln. We are going to be birthed out of a crucible. We have to have a story to tell, a story of great redemption. Every great nation is going to need a great story, a great song to sing, many things. We are learning how to do that. He's going to teach us also a lot more about him in the process. The Holy One I'm talking about is going to teach us a whole lot more about him. We need to know much more about him than we learned in the book of Genesis. He's actually going to have a conversation next week in Parshat Vayera with Moshe and says, Abraham knew me as El Shaddai, and by my covenant name of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, the four-letter Tetragrammaton, he did not know me. I intentionally did not pronounce that because I don't think the pronunciation matters. The Holy One loves his people, and it's his character and his attributes and his Shem that is most important, not a way we pronounce vowels and consonants in this process. So I personally have chosen not to get into the fights and arguments over names. Labels, monikers. I intend to focus on substance and upon the plan, the great plan of the Creator of the universe to bring life to the earth, not to divide people over how you pronounce Shibboleth, or Shibboleth. And whether we hate people because they don't pronounce it the way we like it. That's part of the things we learn about iron sharpening iron and not being put off by things that we don't completely agree on with brothers who are called to the same calling to which we are called, and that are part of the same great B'Tselem Elohim mission and calling. Well, so we have this issue of us learning more about him. In Sefer Shemot, we're going to see him in ways we've never seen him before. We're going to see him, I guess the first way we'll see him is in a burning bush. Wow. Appearing in a bush that burns and is not consumed. We'll see that on Exodus 3 and 4. The first part of this calling of the great nation calling will happen at Horeb, and we'll see the manifestation of the Holy One. Wow, whoever thought that the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov could come or would come or choose to come in some sort of a physical manifestation like a burning bush. And who ever knew that you could hear his voice coming out of the bush, out of the thorn bush? Well, that's one. We're also going to see in this book, we're going to see him come out in a new form that we've never seen before. Yeshuat Adonai. In English, the salvation of the Holy One, or the salvation of Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. But that's in Exodus chapter 14. Stand and see Yeshua Adonai, the Yeshua, the great one, Yeshua of the Holy One. He's going to come in a different manifestation and show himself to us. And I hope you're ready, because when it comes, it's like awakening. Whoa! Now, this was hinted to you in Genesis chapter 3. It was hinted to you in the prophetic blessing of Yaakov when he said, I wait for your Yeshua, O Holy One. It was spoken of in so many different ways and so many symbols, but now we're going to get it right in our face. Stand and see Yeshua Adonai. Well, we're going to learn how to look at the Holy One in a whole different way. We're going to quit looking, hopefully, at numerology, about whether he's one or two or three. That's so irrelevant to anything. He's an echad. He's flowing in unity, and he can get you caught up into his mode, and you begin to flow in unity with him. Echad is not just a number one. That's the smallest, least significant aspect of what that word means. Shevet Hakim Gam Yachad, brothers who dwell together. Yachad. Well, this whole issue of seeing him in a new light with a new level of manifestation. Also, we'll see a pillar of fire and of cloud. We didn't see that in the book of Genesis. Wow. He's going to actually show us the shepherding process of how he leads us and guides us. And we begin to sense the movement that he's doing and the directions that he's taking us and the plan that he has. And then we'll see also how he provides us water from a rock, the provider of water, Mayim Hayim, of living water for our souls, and the provider of bread from heaven. We're going to see him in these manifestations take place in the book of Exodus that we did not see in the book of Genesis. We're going to see him speaking to us about very detailed protocols of how to live on earth as he does in heaven. Bring heaven's thoughts and heaven's wisdom into earth. It's called the Mishpatim Discourse, at least is what I call it. It begins with the 10 words and then continues all the way through chapter 23 of Exodus, from beginning with 20 and 20 through 23 of Exodus. Then we're going to see Matan Torah. He's going to give the Torah over the course of 40 days and 40 nights with Moshe at the top of the mountain. We're going to see him appear before them as a sapphire throne. This is a manifestation we didn't see in Genesis. Wow. Before the sapphire throne and the foundation of his throne in chapter 24 of Exodus. Wow. They saw him high and lifted up, and they ate and they drank, and they didn't die. They saw him and they didn't die. Oh, this is a special manifestation for holy nation people, as opposed to individuals who are just wanting to climb a spiritual ladder. Well, then we're going to see the cleft of the rock. See him appear in the cleft of the rock. This will be another revelation flow of who he is and what he does and how he relates to us. And he's going to declare, he says, my name is merciful. That is my character, my Shem. my attribute. I'm merciful, merciful. Matter of fact, he doubles it and multiplies it. Before anything else, before any other thing you may think about, my attributes are merciful, merciful, compassionate, slow to anger, faithful to covenant, generation after generation after generation, willing to visit after generation for those who even hate me, in order to have a chance to redeem and restore them in this process, to check up on how the redemption process is working in their lives. And then we're going to see, of course, the Mishpatim Discourse. He's going to say, I'm going to dwell among you, and there will be holiness inherent in it, and you need to be ready to host my presence and host holiness, and then let it begin to flow out of you, exude into the world around you. This is the Mishpatim Discourse. We're going to see him in a light we've never seen. And then we're going to see the actual great, I call it the great shekaning, the great visitation, like Joseph promised we would have. It's in Exodus 40 when the Holy One comes. This is the way the book of Exodus ends and prepares us for the book of Leviticus, of Sefer Vayikra, and he called unto him. We're going to call because he's on earth. He comes to earth in a shekaning form, a manifestation of his presence. He sits between the wings of the cherubim on top of the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies, in the holy place. And his presence is like a beacon, calling to us, calling to Moshe, calling to all the world. Will you come and will you entertain the creator of the universe? Well, these are the ways in the macro level. He'll show us other things about himself through stories, through real life parables. And one of those parables that we've already read is about the parable. It's a real life story of the midwives. There are so many revelations of who the Holy One is. First of all, why did they do what they did? Because they feared the Holy One. They carried over what Abraham and Yitzhak and Yaakov had. We don't even know if these women were Egyptians or Hebrews. They seemed to be just midwives that had a performed a service. But nevertheless, whatever their nationality were, they caught something by hanging around the Hebrews. They caught the fear of the Holy One, the reverence for him, the sense of his majesty, the sense that Joseph had that how can I sin against God by doing these things that you wish me to do? And so they didn't. They showed that. And then the second thing was that the Holy One blessed them. He helped them through the process where they weren't slain by Pharaoh. And not only that, he began to establish their households on the basis of this key foundational aspect of the fear of the Holy One. Secondly, we hear that we see the parable of the outcry, the parable of the cry of deliverance. After Pharaoh, the first Pharaoh dies, the one who issued this decree that all the babies be thrown in the Nile by the Egyptians, that there be this forced genocide by the Egyptian people. When he did that, after he did that Pharaoh died, and then suddenly upon his death, something happened that is really inexplicable. Before this time, there had been no outcry, apparently. The people just accepted it. Well, this is the way it is. And nothing had been sufficient to jar them out of the status quo. We get in that. We get in a rut. We get into a state where we say, well, this is just the way it is in life. It's just a tough life, a hard life. We have to fight these people. And we don't cry. We quit crying out to the Holy One for his will, for his plan. Well, Pharaoh died, and everything, all the nations shook. And who next? Well, finally we hear the outcry. And what we find out is that the Holy One responds to the outcry. It has some verbs in that passage that I don't have time to read, but the Holy One saw them, and he heard them, Shemot their voice, and he felt them. He felt with great compassion for them, was moved with great compassion for them, and he began to set in motion the plan that had been waiting. He said, there's no point in going and rescuing and delivering a people that think the status quo is okay. It's just the way it is. You have to deliver a people who is crying out for deliverance and who is ready to endure what is necessary to go through the process of deliverance. We see a conversation take place at the burning bush when the Holy One is asked, "What is your name? What shall I tell them? Who sent me?" Moshe asked. And again, this issue of I'm not going to let you get trapped into monikers and labels and pronunciations of verbs. And he just says, Ayeh, Asher Ayeh. I am, I will be, I have been, I always have been, always will be who I am. Well, now we can all gather around that, can't we? Can't we avoid all the fussing and the fighting and the feuding about how this is pronounced and that's pronounced, how many vowels are put in what, and how you pronounce the vav and how you pronounce the ayin? Can we quit this stuff and just say he is who he is, and we are so caught up in what he's doing? That's what matters. Well, he's going to give us the Ayeh, Asher, Ayeh, revelation, download. And he's going to give us the issue of being someone Pharaoh does not know. This is it makes me sad that there are many people, many leaders in this world, many governmental authorities, many economic leaders, many technology leaders in the world. And the greatest thing that we could say that most describes who they are and why they do what they do and why they say what they say and why they focus on what they focus on is because they don't know the Holy One. When Moshe and Aaron go to see Pharaoh the first time, and they say, the God of the Hebrews has told us let my people go to worship me 3 days journey in the wilderness. And he says, well, who? Why? I don't know. I don't know this guy. And I will not let you go. Well, that first part, I do not know this guy. You wonder why people do what they do? You wonder why we're not supposed to get so upset and so angry and so offended and so self-righteous and morally indignant about what political leaders and governmental leaders and economic leaders and science leaders and medicine leaders and educational leaders and all these people do? It's because we have to understand they're at a great handicap, a great disadvantage. It's a very sad thing. They do not know him any more than Pharaoh did. And since they don't know him, what can you expect from them? We expect? We expect that our job is very important. Our task is very critical, that we emanate light and do so in a way that allows light to permeate, not blind people, not repel people, that we begin to offer a more excellent way based upon a more excellent level of interaction with the Creator of the universe. Well, I'm going to let you go back to your lives here in just a few moments. I have a few more things I would like to talk to you about this parsha and about great nation building. Because if you don't know where you're going and what a great nation consists of and looks like, and what we need to be building and growing with and cooperating with the Holy One on and resisting the temptation to get caught up in all the other stuff of life and the drama and the trauma and the right and the wrong and the morality and the immorality and the justice and the injustice and the social injustice and the social justice. So we get getting all caught up in that and stay focused on the task at hand, the assignment, the deployment, which is great nation building and us becoming part of that great nation. Well, then this is what we're going to have to learn. What are the elements of a great nation? What are our corporate identification and social cohesion factors? What factors lead to social cohesion in the kingdom? What factors lead to identification corporately in the kingdom? Where we're willing to subjugate our own desires, our own attitudes, even our own opinions for the greater good, for the good of the kingdom and moving forward in the plan of God coming to earth. Not for some institution, not for some organization, not for some 501c3, not for some ministry. We're doing this because the King of Heaven has called us to this great nation-building mission. Well, the first thing is that every great nation needs a homeland connection, a sense of homeland, a sense that we belong somewhere, that somewhere is prepared for us, that there is a place of thriving, there is a place of shalom. There's a place of purpose and meaning where we can be who we are called to be and do what we're called to do. Famous Paul Simon line, home where my thoughts escape and home where my music's playing, home where my love lies waiting silently for me. Well, I digressed somewhat into the 60s, but nevertheless, here we are. Do you have a sense of a homeland, something beyond where you are? I mean, I live in Texas. It's a blessing in many ways. I love Texas. I enjoy Texas. I enjoy the crazy weather in Texas. I enjoy the crazy people in Texas. I do. I enjoy the sunsets and the sunrises. I enjoy the rainstorms, the hurricanes and the not so much. But and the tornadoes not so much. But nevertheless, the beauty of the surroundings. But this is not my home. I don't belong here. I have a homeland. You have a homeland wherever you are, whatever nation you're in, whatever country you live in, whatever continent you're on. Whatever city, whatever rural village, whatever, you have a homeland, and it's not there. The homeland that you have is Eretz Yisrael. The homeland that you have is Jerusalem as your capital city. It is the holy place where the Holy One has chosen to make his landing strip, where he will live and manifest himself in the glorious ways. Not only where the things of the history will be accomplished that are necessary through the coming of Yeshua, the presentation of the kingdom of David and Solomon, not only that with the presence of the temple, but also every aspect of things he desires to funnel down to earth through this portal of Jerusalem and then out surrounding Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and all the ends of the earth, but it funnels through this area. That's your homeland. Do you have a sense of a homeland? Do you sense that there is a place in Israel where you belong, where this is home to you? This is not a place you go to visit the Holy Land to get a few artifacts and bring them back home. No, this is your home. You're going back to your home, and that's what we do when we go to Eretz Yisrael. Well, the first aspect of our community is we share a homeland. We share a vision, a dream of a homeland. And I pray that part of what I get to do, it's my privilege and my honor, if I get to awaken something in you that hungers for that holy homeland, hungers for Jerusalem. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, if my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, may my right hand lose its cunning. Oh, if I forget thee, O Jerusalem. Well, we share this. We should have, when we talk about Jerusalem with other people, we should be watching how they react. If it's like, I don't care, that's what happens in Israel. Are the Palestinians entitled their part, and all the political issue? Would we rather have Netanyahu, or would rather have Bennett, that's not the issue here. You can tell those are the people who don't have a heart for the homeland, who don't have this vision for the homeland yet. Maybe they will one day, but right now they don't. And so we go on. But those who we really get close to, those who we can trust, have the same heart, the same hunger for the homeland. And talk about, and it's not like emotional, hyper emotion, but there's a sense of swelling hope and joy that comes, and desire for pilgrimage and for relocation, making Aliyah eventually, somehow, some way, to the Holy Land. Well, that's the first aspect of kingdom building. And so whenever Joseph said what he said about the Holy One will come and visit you, it wasn't just about the visitation. That sounds great to us that he would visit us. Well, but beyond that. And he will bring you out of here. That sounds really good. Now he's going to bring us out of this place of bondage and bitterness and suffering and persecution and forced labor and rigor. He's going to take us. That's good. But that's not where he ends us. And he will take you to the land of Abraham and Isaac and Yaakov. This is your homeland. This is your homeland vision. That's what a nation is built upon, based upon a homeland vision. Second thing is a shared history and a story of origination, a place where we came from. We had to come from somewhere, share something in common in order to build a great nation. This is why, the sages made it so clear, as I said earlier, that every person is supposed to consider themselves during the Passover celebration as personally coming out of Egypt. This is our story, our community story, communal story. This is not just our personal salvation experience. As wonderful as that was, that's a book of Genesis story. The book of Exodus story is how we came out together. So we share these things. We share the experiences of being broken out of bondage, of gently wearing away and being awakened to the hunger to leave, to overcome the status quo, to not accept the things as normative, not accept the way things are as the way things will always be, but to have the higher vision and share that and the experiences of going through it. That's why we tell the stories. The Holy One says, tell the story of Passover to your children and your children's children over and over again. These are the stories. So this is a shared history and origination story. That's part of kingdom building. We're going to have a nation, a great nation. We must have a great story. a great history. Well, we also need a common language, the basic. All sorts of things, but the issue is at the core of our soul, at the core of our communication skills is Hebrew, is the language that he chose to speak to humanity in, that is recorded. He didn't say light be in English. He didn't say whatever that would be in Spanish. Those, I don't know. He didn't say that. He said Yehior. He said it in a Hebrew tongue. He released from heaven the Hebrew tongue upon the earth and upon creation, and that is the basic language that we will build our nation around. Doesn't mean you have to speak every word like an Israeli, be able to have carry-on conversations, but what it means is that certain words, certain parts of the Hebrew awaken something in you, and that's the essence of who you are. For instance, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Well, what happened to you? What becomes? Shema is the key phrase there. Shema is who we are. We are, at essence, a Hebrew spirit, a Hebrew soul, tied to an eternal being who speaks Hebrew, responding to that Hebrew, and we now begin to understand that's our native language. How much have we forgotten? How much have we never, ever learned? That's yet to be determined. That doesn't mean we can't continue to speak English in our conversations, or Afrikaans, or Spanish, or French, or Arabic. But we are going to beginning to understand that at our core there's a Hebrew person in there. And the Hebrew person is just responding to the one creator of the universe who speaks and thinks and releases wisdom and revelation in Hebrew. Well, common language. So we have a homeland connection. That's a strong, powerful force in our lives. We have a shared history that we keep retelling in each other. And that binds us together. Why do you so enjoy? If you do, I presume you're watching this video of me speaking. You understand. You love Hebrew. You have a hunger to know more Hebrew and to hear more things that has the Hebraic perspective to it, or you wouldn't probably be listening to this for very long. But here we go. So why do you enjoy these conversations? Why do you enjoy talking to people who share the same passion? Because you're part of the great nation, the Goy Gadol. And the more you do this with love and with compassion, not with some sort of judgmental attitude or some sort of hyper superiority complex, elitist complex that you know something other people don't. Oh, please don't go that route. We are privileged to be awakened to a hunger to speak the king's language in the king's courts and be courtiers of our king. Well, that's precious. Next thing is, and we learn about this particularly in the first few sections of the book of Exodus, is we need to build a great nation. We need to recognize a common enemy or adversary. Unfortunately, the way the world works, the way the Holy One has designed the world to work for that matter, is that we respond to resistance. We don't get ideals and go flow into ideals. We birth things out of trauma. We birth things out of resistance. We birth things out of challenge. We have to overcome things in order to make them real in our lives. And so we need to understand we have a common adversary and a common enemy. Now, I would rather you focus upon the Yetzirah, the own inclination of your own flesh and your own pseudo-intellect, to divide and separate and judge and criticize other people and take advantage of and use other people and use selfishly material things of this ecosystem creation. I would rather you see that as your primary enemy, because that's what's motivating the other people that you think are your real enemies. But in this situation, Pharaoh allowed all of those things to basically take up residence in him and take up the Shekan residence in him in a situation that controlled his life. Well, many people will do that, but you not wrestle with flesh and blood, as Shaul would say. We really don't. We're really wrestling with this spiritual adversary and enmity. And when we realize that's what's happening, we don't overreact to what people do in the flesh. We do what's necessary to survive, to help other people survive, to self-defend and defend others. and bring about as much shalom as possible, as much space as possible between the flailing weaponry of the adversary and the sons and daughters of Bnei Israel. But we don't engage for the sake of hatred, anger, or fight. We just understand they deal with our common enemy. We deal with it as well, and it is not a pleasant thing. But it is what's forcing us, pushing us forward. It is propelling us into the arms of the Holy One and to the wisdom of the Holy One and His counsel and His direction, that we might be able to fulfill His will. Next thing is we need a unifying leadership. We need someone who inspires us, who doesn't abuse us, doesn't hate us, doesn't yell at us and scream at us all the time, doesn't somehow feel like we're the enemy. I see this happen in religion a lot. When you get a certain ecclesiastical position, you begin to think that the people are your enemies. Heaven forbid. Heaven forbid. You think that a clergy position or a title or a label or a name, that's why I think Yeshua did not want you to be called rabbi, did not want you to be called any of these names that people like to call labels and titles, because with it comes this sense that we're better than the common person. We know more. We're more intelligent. We're more blessed. We're more honored. We're more anointed than they are. And that is the anti of great nation. A great nation is we are all working together, and we are co-laboring and synergizing, and iron sharpening iron, one with one another. And it is an honor and a privilege to be able to do that. It is also a heavy accountability, one that we take on voluntarily, because even the accountability is a blessing and a goodness. But at any rate, now this idea of unifying leadership, we're going to find the first unifying leader in our world is going to be Moshe. Moshe is going to be the prototype. We'll see it in Sefer Shemot, the book of Exodus, but we'll also see it beginning to take place. We're going to learn how not to be a unifying leader, how not to do that. He learns that's the first coming of Moshe as he comes out as an adult, and the first thing happens is he sees the Egyptian beating a Hebrew. And his response to this horrible situation is to take the law into his own hands, slay the Egyptian, bury him in the sand, look around, make sure nobody was looking. Now, this is not good leadership. This is not the kind of leadership that is going to unify a nation, because you see, what are you going to do? How many Egyptians can you kill? How many one-on-one encounters can you have where you slay you think of them as a dragon of some variety, or some sort of a horrible Medusa being, and so you just go around willy-nilly and killing people that have wives and children and bloodlines and lineages and possibilities of redemption. You take that away in a fell swoop because they did something that was maybe really bad. But you didn't need to do that to stop what they were doing. You did it because you were angry and self-righteous and morally indignant. And you did it in such a way that you brought a stench like Shechem, the sons of Israel did at Shechem whenever they slayed the entire nation, the entire city and all the men. And they took and captured the women and sold them as slaves and used them as for whatever. And they took children and sold them as slaves. This is overkill. This is self-righteous. This is selfish ways of doing things. That's not good leadership, not unifying leadership. So we'll see that's not the way you do it. And then the other thing we'll see quickly with Moshe about what was initially in his first coming. He's going to have a second coming, which is much more successful, like Yeshua. But nevertheless, in his first coming, not only did he kill the Egyptian, the next thing he went out, next day he goes out, and he sees arguments going on between two of the Hebrews, between two Hebrew brethren, or co-persons of the same ethnicity. And he decides to get involved. He decides to take sides. He begins to try to engage himself with them, and that does not turn out, that's not unifying leadership. Taking sides in controversies or taking some sort of a superiority mode is not a good way of unifying leadership. Well, that's what we're going to find out, how not to be a good leader, a unifying leader. And yet then we'll see when you submit, when you stand before the Horeb bush and it speaks to you and you realize you are not capable, you don't know enough, you don't have anything to offer except what he gives you. then you can actually become a unifying leader, and we can take a unifying leadership role, and then the community can be built around that, and we can inspire others to take on a unifying leadership role and walk in wisdom, walk in counsel, walk in the empowerment and in the direction and in the actual specific instructions of the creator of the universe to bring heaven to earth. Well, there are other things that will build this great nation. Its own calendar. A great nation will need its own calendar. It needs its own way of reckoning time. And so, as you know, we're going to get that. We're going to have our own calendar, our own series of months, our own series of days. We're going to learn the significance of the sevens, of the cycles of seven, from the beginning with the seventh day Sabbath. These are not just a matter of holidays or days of rest or days of visitation, days to have a meeting, have a group of people come together and meet. This is about getting engaged in the creator of the universe's calendar and bringing that to the earth. And the themes that he's working on at a given time, letting those be our themes as opposed to what we feel or what our sentiment might tell us or our traditions might tell us. So there's calendar. There's an issue of diet and food. Each nation has its own cuisine and its own things that we don't eat and we do eat. Well, this is going to be provided for us in the days to come. The great nation is going to have its own cuisine standards. And if you're not following those cuisine standards, then means you're connecting yourself with other cultures and other ethnicities, and you're taking on their view of what is food and what is not food, and what is us and what is not us, what is the plan of the Holy One for us, and what is not the plan of the Holy One for us. And that is where we run into great difficulty when we now are no longer unifying around our menu, around what he told us to eat and not to eat. Well, then we begin to say we're not part of the great nation. We only want to play with it, think about it, use it as theory, but we're not really part of the great nation because we're not following the great nation calendar, we're not following the great nation cuisine standards that are outlined for us. We need a great literature. To have a great nation, you must have a great culture, and a great culture involves literature and art and music. We need an anthem. We need a kingdom anthem. Well, the kingdom anthem is coming. The great nation anthem will come out in Exodus chapter 15, the song of the sea. This is the song of the sea, the song of Moshe, the song of the creation. All these songs of the Torah become our great anthem in this process. Well, so we have that. We have many other factors we'll get to later, but I want to move on. It's about time to finish our conversation here today. Are you ready to build a great nation? When I say that, you're not responsible for the building plan. The blueprint's been laid. You're not even responsible for providing the supplies, the materials. Those supplies and materials are being provided from heaven, and if you try to provide them from the earth, you'll substitute materials that are not good. You'll focus on things that are not important. And so the issue is, are you ready to be used by the creator of the universe with other people who you may not agree on all things with, who may be a little different than you, but who also have the same homeland connection, the same fear and reverence of the Father, the same calendar? Can we continue to flow in this process? And can we build this great nation? Can we overcome the obstacles and the challenges that lie before us? Are you ready to break out of the status quo? Until we see this world and its present situation as intolerable, not that we're going to start killing people, heaven forbid. That's the exact opposite of what we want to do. Not that we're going to start just rebelling and going off to live somewhere in a hermit village. Not that. But that we are not going to do the things that people do anymore. Today's a good day. It's December the 25th. We're just not there. We're not where people are. We're not. We have another calling. We have another purpose that transcends all that. I'm not going to go into great detail. I'm not bashing people who they don't know. They're like Pharaoh who don't know this Elohim and his kingdom coming to earth and building a great nation as being our calling in this season. So, but we see it and say, don't get frustrated, don't get angry, don't get impatient. Just understand, okay, this is just an evidence, a sign, a reminder. We don't belong here. We have a higher calling. Not because we're better, because we're supposed to be leaders, and we must go forward in our leadership capacities. All right. Moshe will come back from the Horeb experience. He'll meet up with Aaron, and he will go to the elders of Israel in their bondage. How they got away and where they all went and where they met. It's all just a mystery. We don't know exactly how that worked out. But the elders of Israel and the people of Israel, the people, the ordinary common man of all the different tribes and tongues, and that were all slaves, all enslaved. They're around the outside apparently, or somehow hearing or getting messages of what's going on inside this structure. And Moshe tells them what the Holy One wants to do and what his plan is. And they, the elders, embrace it, and then the people embrace it as well. Well, hardship is about to come. Difficult times then follow. But that is not going to change it. That is going to compel it and propel it. So take a deep breath. Get ready for what's coming. Understand what's coming behind that. And that is the plan of the Holy One and the goodness of the Holy One coming to earth. Well, Shabbat Shalom. A good Sabbath to you. I focus on good and Sabbath. There is good in this world because the Creator of the universe is releasing it. There is Sabbath because He has made this day, your day, to be re-empowered, re-energized. He has made the Sabbath for man. You're a man or you're a woman. You're in this humanity realm. Let the Sabbath wash over you. Don't worry about what the world's doing. Don't worry about what the other people are doing. Maybe even members of your family are engaged in. Let the holiness and the goodness of the Sabbath rise up in you and let it transform you, because we're going to need co-laborers to build this great nation upon the earth. Amen. If you're visiting with us from another city, another nation, please leave your name and your location from which you're watching. I pray this has been a blessing to you. Let us have any prayer requests or any comments or anything you wish to say. We'd love to hear from you. I'll go through every one of them one by one. I really do every time. And I'll try to let you know that I was there and saw it. This will be on YouTube eventually. After someone helps me with the technology to be able to do that, it will be here sometime today, I hope. And so this on Facebook Live or on YouTube, let us know you were here, and we will pray for you. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.